As I mentioned, all these agendas can only be implemented in and with cities, and this puts cities under a tremendous amount of pressure as they need to align their local activities with global agendas. However, they often lack the necessary support to do so, be it knowledge products, resources and capacities, or also political backing by national governments. And therefore, actors at the local level are in need of guidance to support them in implementing global agendas in cities in an integrated manner. And this is what CityWorks offers. To give you a little idea about where we are coming from and the process CityWorks has gone through so far. So after the initial idea of creating a toolkit, CityWorks as a working aid for local governments to implement global agendas locally, we conducted a gaps and needs analysis. This entailed, for one, a stock taking and an analysis of already existing references, resources, and tools. So we looked at what's already out there and tried to identify gaps. In the same step, we also conducted interviews with partners and advisors on the ground in partner countries in order to understand their situation and the demands, so what they need. From that, we created our gaps and needs analysis. We then moved on to defining our conceptual approach by, among others, creating a feasibility study for developing the toolkit CityWorks, both conceptually and also methodologically. As we moved on to drafting a first tool. So we developed the first toolkit in Excel. This was sort of our first prototype. And we also presented the broader approach of CityWorks, the idea, and also the prototype to relevant stakeholders and actors in order to get their feedback and feed it to the further development of the toolkit. We then moved on to, after the first prototype was ready, we moved on to applying the toolkit and the tools that are behind it on the ground. We had several workshops and we engaged in process advice, among others in Ghana, Egypt, and Mauritania. And from these three country examples, you will also hear short presentations about the applications on the ground after this presentation. We also worked with a project, GIZ project in Brazil, and we are still currently of discussing potential applications in Guatemala, Palestine, and Nepal. We also developed various materials for that purpose, presentations, guide documents, etc., which we are using when it comes to the applications on the ground. With the insights from those applications, we then reviewed our conceptual approach. So we fed back the feedback and the experience that we gained in the workshops into the further tool development and refinement. And we also refined the overarching structure of CityWorks, which you will see in a second. And simultaneously, we also started working on digitalizing the tool kit. So we wanted to move from this prototype that existed in the Excel spreadsheet to a more digital, user-friendly format. We tested and improved it, and the website that we're having, that you will also get an introduction to today, is online, I think, since October 2020. And now we are currently in the rollout phase. So we developed this training of trainers that we're currently having today, with the aim also of creating a community of practice of advisors and consultants who can apply CityWorks. And we are also working on integrating CityWorks and also presenting and introducing it to other international initiatives and organizations. And we're also in the process, as I mentioned, with the applications on the ground. We are working in the sphere of demand generation within GIZ projects in order to have CityWorks applied further. So moving on to the next slide. You've heard a lot about the process now and where we are coming from with CityWorks, but what is the CityWorks approach actually? So as I said, CityWorks is a perceived and conceived as a working aid for the implementation of global agendas at the local level. With the aim to, which you see in the middle, enable cities to implement global agendas in an integrated way. And how do we do that? Or how does CityWorks do that? CityWorks does that by offering, one, a combination of methodological and sector-specific tools. And throughout this training, you will also have the opportunity to get to know hands-on at least 2 of the tools. And also by connecting local action to global agendas through 7 categories. Those are the CityWorks categories, which you will also see in a second, and by enabling advisors to help cities to do so. And what are the orientations for CityWorks? The broader overarching orientations. One, we put here the integrated implementation of global agendas with a strong focus on the integration. Then the overarching principle enshrined in the 2030 agenda, leaving no one, and we've added also no place behind. And then there are, of course, also the national strategies and frameworks such as national urban policies or NDCs that guide cities' work on implementing global agendas as well. So in a nutshell, CityWorks is a set of interlinked tools that help cities to realize, analyze, and also tackle the implications of global agendas locally. And one last sentence on the CityWorks approach. The approach is also based on the systemic thinking of capacity works, but it also offers a targeted step-by-step process for the purpose of implementing global agendas at the local level. Moving on to the target groups. The main target group for CityWorks is advisors, consultants, and experts from international and/or development cooperation. These practitioners are ideally in the position to support and accompany an urban development project or a program, or even directly support a local government. And this could also apply for various other stakeholders such as academia, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, or also representatives from the private sector. In that sense, the secondary target group, the indirect target group, is thus policymakers, practitioners, and staff from municipal, metropolitan, regional, and/or national authorities who are, of course, also involved in the different processes of implementing global agendas locally. What are the functionalities of CityWorks? On this slide, you see 4 main functionalities of the toolkit. First of all, CityWorks provides explanations and informations. So it's an explainer that provides targeted information on the various global agendas and their relevance for cities. In that sense, CityWorks helps to translate international agreements and targets to local realities. But CityWorks is also a process guide that helps advisors with targeted information and questions to design a process that fits their local needs. In doing so, CityWorks proposes a standard sequencing of steps and processes, but it can also be applied according to the individual needs and demands of a city. So it kind of is, it offers a sequencing of steps, but it can also be individualized in terms of the application of the tools. Thirdly, CityWorks also offers a tool library. We call it our resource library, which is also online. And that provides templates, links, and also references to many other tools and additional information that have been integrated into the CityWorks approach. And lastly, last but not least, it is also an advisory process that is currently being developed in a web-based, user-friendly format that with the aim to eventually allow for a dynamic process and usage of the toolkit. So that, for example, if you enter collected data in one step of the process of applying a tool, that you can also use this data and the results of the analysis in another step. So this is what we are also currently working on, of creating this very dynamic, individualized, results-based advisory process. Here, as promised, you also get an overview of the CityWorks phases and steps. We have divided it into 4 steps, and under each step you find different broader tool categories, let's say. So this is sort of portrayed as a standard sequencing of steps and phases. However, I've already mentioned that this is portrayed in a kind of linear way, but you can also rather perceive CityWorks as a circular tool, meaning that you do not necessarily need to follow this line of phases, but you can also start with a different phase that is more applicable to the local context. So it's a flexible toolkit. But let me just give you a brief overview of the different phases and steps. So phase 1 is all about raising awareness about the global agendas and analyzing where a city is currently standing in terms of implementing global agendas locally. Phase 2 is then focusing on analyzing and identifying the specific needs for action, and helps to prioritize clear options for actions at the local level with regard to a specific urban development project or plan. Phase 3 is then about planning for action. For instance, it helps to define the next steps, as well as to identify and mobilize relevant actors that should be involved and the resources that are needed for the implementation of a chosen action. And phase 4 is all about keeping track of progress during the implementation, which means, for example, setting up an effective monitoring and review mechanism in order to measure the impacts of the prioritized action. And it also helps to connect local reporting to national reporting or even international reporting. Below in the arrow, you see supporting processes that are not directly linked to a specific phase or tool collection under the phases, but it's rather supporting processes that can be helpful throughout all the phases and steps of using CityWorks. We also didn't want to hide from you several of our products that we have been developing in the past years, let's say. For one, we have conducted quite recently a co-benefit study together with Urban Catalyst, and the colleagues are also here. Philip Misowitz and Christoph Walter, I think, is going to join us as well. And the study is called Conceptualizing Urban Development Actions Towards an Assessment of Potential Impacts and Trade-offs. And with this studies, Urban Catalyst analyzed 45 urban development actions with regard to their potential impact and contribution to the implementation of global agendas. We have also compiled several CityWorks training handouts, which you see in the middle of the slide, summarizing the approaches and results of the different workshops of the applications we've already had on the ground with CityWorks, meaning on Ghana, Egypt, and Mauritania. And we are also currently developing a user manual and guidance document with the purpose to inform users and also train us on the functionalities and different steps and potential applications of CityWorks.